Hi, everybody. Welcome to our webinar on smarter accounting with Coast. I'll give everyone just a second to join and settle in here, but I am really excited with what we have to share for you guys today. My name is Angela. I'm on Coast's marketing team. And just to give you guys a little bit of an intro here, whether you are a current Coast customer or you're just exploring how to make your accounting a little bit easier and smoother, this is going to be a really, really good session for you guys. If you already know who Coast is, you may think of us or know us as kind of the smart fuel card solution. We've made life a lot easier for folks in operations and for fleet managers and things like that. And now we're really excited to do kind of the same thing for folks in like the finance persona. We've recently launched a set of really great accounting and expense management features into our already great Coast product. And that's kind of the focus of the webinar here. We're really excited to share them directly with you guys, walk through them. It's going to be a good balance of explaining the features and then also a demo, so you'll be able to see the platform, see these things in use. It's going to be really good. So let's just get into it. As far as the agenda goes, it's going to be great. We're going to start just kind of with what the pain points are for finance teams today. And then we'll get into kind of how Coast helps you solve them. We'll also end with a little bit of a preview. We've got a lot of really exciting stuff always coming up with our product. So we'll give you guys a bit of a sneak peek. And then we'll end with a Q&A. But feel free to drop questions in the chat throughout. If you have something in your mind, whether it's a question or a comment or whatever it is, don't feel like you need to wait until the end of the session. Please, we love to see your engagement in the chat throughout, and we'll either come to it at the end or maybe even answer it live. Great. So without further ado, I will just introduce our speakers quickly. We have Greg here, who's on sales, and Larry on our product team. They're going to do a great job taking you through everything today, so I'll pass it over to them.
Thank you, Angela. So I'm going to move on to our next slide here, Angela. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to kick things off with a high-level overview of what Coast is for the folks on the phone who have not had the opportunity to work with us yet or experienced our product yet. So very simply, Coast is a fuel card, corporate card, and expense management platform in one package. Our solution gives customers the ability to issue cards to their employees and have complete control over how those cards can be used. Those cards can be locked down to be fuel-only type cards and act like a traditional fuel card. And they can also be opened up to be used at various merchants to act more like a corporate card. And typically our customers use us in a combination to accommodate both of those types of purchasing scenarios. So from there, we've actually built an expense management and accounting functionality to enable our customers to easily collect data from users, review and reconcile their transactions, and then integrate into their various systems like accounting, fleet management, telematics, and more, with the goal of being an all-in-one purchasing solution for your business. So while this session isn't necessarily designed to be an end-to-end product deep dive, we'll touch more on the product as we go through. But hopefully this helps everyone conceptualize a little bit how our cards and our platform work together to help you solve for your expense management needs. Now, let's transition into our actual topic, which is going to be highlighting how we've built an accounting module to save finance teams time managing their credit card transactions and to also help them close the books faster. But before going into the actual specifics, I do want to give some context around how we started on this journey and why. So most of the customers who are on this call likely came to Coast seeking a fleet and fuel card solution to control how their employees can purchase fuel and maybe other vehicle-related expenses when they're out in the field. And that's exactly what we set out to solve for when we started this company. We were hyper-focused for a number of years on creating the best possible experience for fleet managers, operations teams, and any administrator who was managing the fleet and fuel card specifically for their business. As we started to work with more and more customers, Coast became embedded into our customers' finance processes. We began to hear more and more from finance teams specifically on some of the pain points that they had around their expense management, corporate card reconciliation, and accounting processes. And what we found through these conversations was what we learned was that the majority of finance teams are actually still using manual processes to manage their employee credit card expenses. And they came to Coast seeking solutions. So a few of the most consistent themes that we heard and actually set out to solve for were the following. First was it was really cumbersome to collect the necessary data from their employees after they made a credit card transaction out in the field. So collecting things like a receipt, a description of the purchase, or a job code became really challenging. Two was that traditional corporate cards require teams to categorize their transactions with accounting specific data like GL codes, accounting categories, tagging receipts, all within a different system, right? So maybe they were pulling it out into an Excel spreadsheet, or they had to use an entirely different system to do that. And then lastly, once all of that data was compiled and tagged appropriately, entering that data into the accounting system was quite manual and cumbersome. So today what we're going to be focusing on and are excited to be taking you through is how we went about tackling each of these pain points through the accounting workflows that we're going to show you today. So first thing we're going to dive into is how we're going to help you stop chasing your employees down for transaction details. So we heard time and time again from our customers that their current corporate card solutions did not give them an effective and reliable way to collect information from their teams. Or in some instances, they had to pay separate software vendors just for expense reporting functionality. And with that, what we've done is we've introduced a really easy and flexible way to capture all relevant purchase details from your employees in real time via our mobile workflow. So this functionality comes completely standard with Coast. It's included within your package. And with this workflow, you can enable your employees to more effectively do a few things. Number one is going to be capturing receipts and other relevant data about the transaction in real time directly from their mobile phone. Set up requirements to collect certain fields based on certain criteria. So you're going to be able to define those rules and define that criteria up front. And then give you a way so that you can enforce collection by sending reminders, flagging missing information. And I'm sure there will be a number of folks on the phone that are excited about the fact that we're going to be able to shut down cards at some point and give you some consequences for employees who are continuously delinquent on getting you the information you need. So with that, let's just run through an example of how we can kind of put this to use. I'm going to pass this over to Larry here in a minute, but let's look at the example that we came up with so that we can run through this functionality. So for the product demo that Larry gives you in a second, we're going to pretend, Larry's running an HVAC business that has 20 technicians. Currently, that business uses Coast as a fuel-only card for their employees. And they found that their technicians actually need to be making purchases at Home Depot, Lowe's, and maybe other hardware and supply store in order to buy materials in order to get their jobs done. And the current solution that you have in place does not enable your employees to capture relevant purchase information whatsoever, and it's causing some headaches in the back office when it comes time to do your reconciliation and month-end close process. So to better manage these expenses, you want them to capture key details with each transaction that includes a receipt, a memo, and a job code. And Larry, I'm going to hand it over to you to show how we can set that up.
All right, thanks, Greg. So I'm going to share my screen. All right, so to start off, like Greg mentioned, in this particular scenario, what I want to do as the owner of Larry's company is to be able to make it so that my technicians out in the field can make purchases at Home Depot and Lowe's and provide receipts and job codes so that I know that I can audit those purchases with the receipts once they've been made and can attribute the spend back to the appropriate customers so that I have a really clean billing cycle. And so the first thing to do to make that possible is to make it so that my employees can purchase non-fuel at Coast. So right now I have my policy for my technicians set up here. All of my technicians are on this technician policy. And as you can see, right now I only allow my technicians to purchase fuel on Coast cards. But like I mentioned, we are having a lot of incidental, we're seeing a lot of incidental needs for supplies while our technicians are on the job. And so what I'm going to do is edit this technician's policy and add some additional permissions to it. Specifically, I'm going to make it so that they can purchase materials and supplies in addition to the fuel that they're able to purchase today. Like I mentioned, I want to be able to collect receipts for these purchases. Historically, I haven't collected receipts for my fuel transactions just because I haven't found that that we need to be able to have, our accounting team hasn't asked for receipts for fuel in particular. But after consulting with our accounting team, they have let me know that they want to have receipts for all non-fuel purchases. So I'll go ahead and say whenever we get a purchase from a technician that falls under the materials and supplies category, go ahead and ask for a receipt. So now I've made it so that my technicians in the field can make purchases for materials and supplies. I can add additional restrictions to those purchases, like setting a daily number of transactions or a max transaction amount that automatically renews. But for now, I'm just going to leave the policy as is. And so what's left for me to do is to make it so that I can collect job codes on these materials and supplies purchases. In order to do that, I'm going to create what we call fields in Coast. For the sake of this demo, I'm going to show how you can do it one way using an integration, but I want to pause here to say that if Coast doesn't integrate with a platform that you use for accounting, then we provide a way for you to create fields yourself. In this case, for the sake of this demo, I am a QuickBooks Online customer. I've already set up my QuickBooks integration with Coast, and the fields that Coast has pulled in from QuickBooks and that I'm currently using to label my transactions before syncing them back to QuickBooks include a QuickBooks project field. If I click into the field, I'm able to see all the information or basically the options that will show up if a user opens up a QuickBooks project dropdown. These will be the fields that they are able to choose from and the options that they're able to choose from for that project field. You'll notice that I can set a name for or code for the project as well as a description. What I have to do next is to determine whether or not I want the end users in the field to be able to, and these technicians in particular, see this field appear on purchases after they make a purchase and add it. For the sake of this demo, let's assume that we've already configured that in Coast, but what I'll voice over now before showing what the experience looks like for the end user, the technician in the field who's made a purchase, I'll just quickly say that we as Coast give you a lot of control over who sees which fields in which situations. And so, for example, with the QuickBooks project field, given the scenario that we're running through now, I only want my end users and my technicians in the field to see this field for this QuickBooks project field appear on purchases if they've made a purchase that falls into a hardware and supplies category. So on fuel purchases and for any other type of purchase, I know that adding this field to that purchase won't be relevant. And so I have the power within Coast to tell Coast, don't collect this field in those situations, only collect it where relevant, specifically in this case for hardware and supplies. Now I'll show you what it looks like as for the technician who's just made a hardware and supplies purchase at Home Depot. So let's say that I am in the field, I'm on a job, and I realize that I need to run to Home Depot to purchase some additional materials in order to complete the job. What I'll see, my experience will be that I'll go to Home Depot, I'll swipe my card, let's say for $67.53, and then Coast will immediately send me a text message or a push notification if I have the mobile app that prompts me to add additional information about that purchase. Specifically, because of the policy that we've set up, it's going to prompt me to provide an receipt and a job code. So I'm just going to step through this. This is what it would look like for a user who's uploaded the receipt. Let's say they've also uploaded a memo. And now all they need to do is provide the job code that my administrator has told me that I need for this particular purchase. When I open the job code field, I'll see a list of all the job codes that are available to choose from, as well as the descriptions in case I needed a little bit of additional context. And then once I select one, all my purchase information will be visible here. And so I'll see all of the information that I provided, including receipt, memo, and job code. Once that information is submitted, it immediately becomes available to my administrators in the back end in Coast so that they can review it.
Hey, Larry, we weren't able to see what you were showing. Do you mind starting from the top on that piece?
Specifically on the, oh yeah, one second.
On the data collection as the user. There we go.
Are we good now? Okay. Apologies,
yeah, we can see it.
everybody.
Yeah, it's okay. We should start from the top.
All right. So let's imagine that I'm a technician in the field and I have gone to Home Depot to make an incidental purchase for some materials I need for my job. As soon as I swipe my card and make that purchase, I'm going to receive a text message or a push notification from Coast if I have the mobile app. And that, once I click into the push notification, will open a link that shows me details about the purchase that I just made. In this case, I made a purchase at Home Depot that was for $67.53. And I'm seeing that I'm being prompted to provide a receipt, a memo, and some additional purchase information by my administrator. So if I step through this process, this is what it would look like once I've uploaded my receipt, uploaded my memo, and all that's left for me to do now is to provide the job code. When I open the job code dropdown, I'll see all of the options that I have, including the code itself, as well as a description for that job code. And then once I select one, I'll be able to see all of the purchase information that I provided before submitting it to my administrator. Once I submit it to my administrator, all of that information immediately becomes available in the Coast admin portal, and I, as the administrator, will be able to review it and follow up if I have any questions or see any information missing.
Awesome, thanks, Larry. Angela, can you share back up the deck for us? Great. All right, so let's transition now. Now that we've seen how users can actually transact with Coast and provide to finance teams the necessary information around purchasing, let's transition to how finance teams can actually review and reconcile these transactions in bulk from the Coast platform. So the old way of doing this, with traditional typical corporate card programs, requires finance teams to manually do a number of things, First is they have to take all of the transactions, could be hundreds or thousands of transactions in any given month, and pull those into a file or some other system to be able to start to add things and data points, that they need. So that could be job codes, it could be receipts, it could be accounting categories from QuickBooks, that Larry had just showed you. Any number of information that you need in order to close the books at the end of the month for your credit card reconciliation process. From there, once all of those transactions are actually categorized correctly, they have to be moved from that file into the ERP or accounting system manually. I've spoken to customers who key those in one by one. I also have spoken to customers who have some sort of maybe homegrown file upload process to do that. With Coast, we've transformed kind of how this workflow can work, with the goal of saving you guys as much time closing your books as possible. So what we allow you to do through our accounting module is review and reconcile directly from the Coast platform. We're also going to allow you to automatically categorize transactions directly within our accounting platform with accurate data, right? So you're not, doing the same redundant task time and time again for every single transaction every single month. And then lastly, we're going to enable you to sync each transaction into your accounting system using our API integration or our custom file upload. So I want to dive into kind of a few of the features and talk to them at a high level before Larry gives us another demo and talk to how each of these can save you guys time. So most categorization of credit card transactions is really redundant and time consuming, right? You're constantly applying the same GL code or the same accounting category to the same type of transactions every month. And again, it could be hundreds or thousands of transactions every single month. With Coast, we actually give you guys the ability, give finance teams the ability to set rules up front, which will automatically categorize transactions and code them with the right purchase information. So, for example, if you know every purchase made by an employee within your service department happens at Home Depot, should be tagged with a particular GL code, that GL code will now be tagged automatically after a transaction takes place within the Coast portal and then passed to your accounting system with that right information attached to it. Moving on to how actually Coast works with your accounting system, once those transactions are enriched at the end of every single month with the right data and ready to be synced to the accounting system, we will enable you guys to, with a few clicks, pass those into the right place and not have to do any additional work within QuickBooks or within NetSuite, whatever accounting system is that you guys use. So I want to call out here probably the biggest differentiator between our accounting integrations and the way most typical corporate cards work with QuickBooks or any of these accounting integrations that you see here is that we're actually going to relieve you from needing to do any work whatsoever within the accounting system. All of the data that comes over on a transaction by transaction basis will have all of the information that you need for the month end close. So we're going to jump back into the Coast platform here, but we want to take a look at the particular example again. So you have your HVAC technicians, which Larry just showed you, how you enable them to be using Coast cards to make purchases at Home Depot and maybe some other supply houses. They've captured receipts, they've added their job codes for each transaction, and now all of these purchases should be coded with the same accounting category. And we're going to pass those over into QuickBooks automatically. So Larry's going to take you through what that actual review and reconciliation process looks like within Coast.
All right, so I'm gonna share my screen one more time. All right, so just gonna pause for a moment. Can I get a thumbs up if you can see my screen, Greg? Great, perfect. Okay, so like Greg mentioned, Coast gives you and your accounting teams full visibility into the transactions that are coming into Coast and gives you a way to review and reconcile those transactions, label and reconcile those transactions in Coast before you even send them on to your accounting platform. And so to continue the scenario that we've been talking through so far, let's take a look at this Home Depot transaction that we just made, that one of our technicians just made in the field for $67.53. As the accounting team, I'm going to be able to see that transaction took place. I'll be able to see when it took place, where it took place, who purchased it, what amount they spent, whether they've provided a memo and if they haven't, the purchase will automatically be flagged for me so that I know that this person needs to be followed up with before or even after I sync my transactions to my accounting platform. And if they have provided a receipt, I can also preview that receipt directly within the table here by clicking on the receipt icon. In addition to the information that's automatically provided, I also am going to see my QuickBooks, in the case of this scenario, accounting fields, but these you can map to any accounting platform that you use for your own organization. In this case, I'm going to see all of my QuickBooks accounting fields, and I'll be able to tell directly in this table whether or not the user, much like with the receipt, provided a QuickBooks project where relevant. And so because both of these transactions are for Home Depot, I know that they're both materials related. And so I would do a quick check to see if there's a project provided for them. And if the user hasn't provided a project, this would be a flag for me to know that that user needs to be followed up with. In addition, I'm able to change the selection that the user's made. So if I look at the transaction and I see that it's been mislabeled, I'm not bound to the selection that the user made. I can clear it out and change it to a new one, the correct one. The same is true for selections that haven't been made already. So let's say, for example, that I know that all my Home Depot transactions are going to be labeled with the same accounting category of supplies. I can go ahead and do that individually for each transaction in this table. In addition, I can do it in bulk by selecting multiple transactions and then applying a bulk action that will apply all of the, for example, accounting categories to all of the selected transactions at once. And then furthermore, like Greg mentioned, if I know that all of my, that some part of my coding is a bit repetitive and follows a pattern, then I can create an automation so that I no longer have to do that labeling myself. And so just to show an example of what that could look like, I'll go and create an automation here, fields, and I'll say, like I mentioned, every time I see a particular merchant, that merchant being Home Depot, I already know what accounting category I'm going to label that transaction with. So let me eliminate the work of doing that myself by saying, every time I see Home Depot, label that transaction with supplies. And now that I've created this automation, every time a new transaction is made on a Coast card and is made at a Home Depot location, that transaction will automatically be labeled with a supplies accounting category so that by the time it reaches this view in the table that we were just looking at, this field will already be filled out for the corresponding Home Depot transactions. You can do that with merchant. You can do it by merchant category. So if you know all of your hardware and supplies merchant category, regardless of what merchant the hardware and supply were purchased at, will be labeled with a particular accounting category. You can do the same thing with that. So we provide a lot of flexibility in terms of what automations you're able to create for your organization. Once the transactions have been labeled and are ready to sync to my accounting platform, the process is really easy. Let's say that this is a R&D class. All I have to do is mark the transaction for export. At that point, it'll be staged for export, and then I can click export to export the transaction, in this case to QuickBooks Online.
Awesome. Thanks, Larry. Angela, I think we probably want to transition to some Q&A at this point, yeah?
Yeah, there's been some really good engagement in the chat, so I want to thank everyone and ask, please keep it coming. This is great to see. There was one question in the chat that was asking, I believe, about the flow if someone does not have the Coast app downloaded. Is this a similar receipt capture flow on SMS? Who wants to take that one?
Yeah, I can take it. The flow is pretty streamlined and it's fairly similar. So if the user has a mobile app, the flow will be that we send them a push notification that they can click to open the mobile app and see the transaction details that I demonstrated. If the user doesn't have the mobile app, the flow is pretty similar, but instead of sending a push notification, we'll send them a text message. And then in the text message, we'll include a link that will open for them to be able to fill out the transaction details as we demonstrated today.
Love it. Keep the questions coming. I also saw a quick question about integrating with QuickBooks Desktop. I believe this is just a clarification between, I think we were showing QuickBooks, but does someone just want to clarify? I believe yes.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that one more time, Angela?
Yeah, no problem. I think there was a question just about integrating with QuickBooks Desktop in addition
Yes.
to, yes.
Yes, so I demonstrated our integration with QuickBooks Online, but we also have a integration with QuickBooks Desktop that makes it so that you can export your transactions and upload them to QuickBooks Desktop with one click, and they'll, well, really, that's it.
Yeah, it's probably worth highlighting, right? The accounting workflow and integration process that Larry just took us through works exactly the same way for NetSuite, Sage Intacct, QuickBooks Desktop, and obviously QuickBooks Online, which we showed you. For any other accounting system that you're using, right? Additional fields can be added to that export spend tab. And we'd be able to export those into a custom file, which could ultimately be uploaded to other accounting systems. So the workflow is largely similar across basically all ERPs.
Yep.
I love it. Last call for any questions in the chat. This has been really fantastic. Thank you guys again. Lastly, we'll just bring up any next steps, skipping to the end here. For those of you who are current Coast customers, if you want to drop the word interested in the chat, we can follow up with you and help you turn all of these accounting features on. It's worth noting that these are all entirely included in your Coast account. There's no extra charges or anything like that for turning these features on. So if you're interested, drop that in the chat now and we can reach out to you. And if you're not yet a current Coast customer, but you want to be, you can see if you pre-qualify just by right on our website. So you can click the link on the screen, or you can Google us, or you can enter that URL in just to see if you pre-qualify and you want to learn more about these features and a lot of the other ones that we have coming up. This was really great, you guys. Thank you so much again. Yes, you can
Thanks,
get a
Angela.
copy
Thanks,
of the
everybody.
video. We will send you this tomorrow along with anything else. I'll just give everyone one more second to say interested. Hopefully you found this really helpful. We'll have more of this type of content coming up soon. So thank you guys for joining, and thank you again, Greg and Larry, for leading us through all of this. Great. Thank you guys. Awesome. I'm going to wrap it there. We'll be in touch really shortly with recordings and follow-ups and things like that. Thanks, guys.